Forget stuffy car shows behind velvet ropes and that museum smell that they get. Car cruises are the rolling block parties of the automotive world. From thunderous muscle machine shaken windows to glitter-covered themed rides spreading cheer, every cruise has its own flavor. Buckle up, because we're about to take a joyride through the wonderful world of car cruises on today's episode of Horsepower Nation. First, very briefly, the things we all need to know. Car cruises are one of the most beloved excuses for car people to gather, show off, and argue about which decade made real cars. At first glance, a cruise is simple. Cars line up, roll around town, everybody pretends they're casually passing by when in reality they've been polishing that hood ornament since breakfast. But the type of cruise you attend makes a huge difference. Each one has its own flavor, its own personality, and occasionally questionable soundtracks. Everybody got that? Good. Number 5, modern performance cruises. Now, modern performance cruises are the loudest, fastest, and most often the most ego-driven of the bunch. These cruises gather the latest muscle cars, imports, and sports cars, everything from Dodge Hellcats that sound like a thunderstorm on wheels to Subaru WRXs that seem legally obligated to pop and crackle every 5 seconds. Drivers of these cars tend to believe that revving their engines in a parking lot is a public service, as if the world has been waiting to hear their aftermarket exhaust for days now. The cars themselves are impressive. Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes, BMW M Series, Nissan GTRs, all flexing horsepower numbers and performance upgrades. The vibe is less, appreciate the piece of history, and more like, listen to how fast I can burn through my tires. Authenticity isn't about period-correct upholstery, it's about horsepower bragging rights and how loud the turbo whistle is. What sets these cruises apart is their obsession with the now. Forget nostalgia and quirky themes. This is about sheer performance and showing off the latest mods. If you like the smell of premium fuel and the occasional ill-advised burnout in front of a cop, this is your happy place. Number 4, themed cruises. Now, themed cruises are where car culture meets costume party. These events are less about horsepower and more about personality. One week it might be lowriders with dazzling paint and hydraulics, the next it's a Halloween cruise with cars dressed up better than some of the people attending. Picture a 1960s VW bus with peace signs plastered all over it, parked next to a Jeep parade where every Wrangler has a rubber duck stuck in the dash. Here, creativity rules. Cars just aren't machines, they are canvases. It's less about performance upgrades and more about, does this paint job scream disco enough? Themed cruises are the rolling festivals of the car world, filled with music, decorations, and the occasional inflatable skeleton riding shotgun. The difference? Unlike vintage stock cruises, which clutch pearls at a non-original screw, themed cruises welcome anything fun and outrageous. It's an all-in good time where creativity matters more than horsepower and everybody has permission to be ridiculous. Number 3, vintage stock cruises. Now, vintage stock cruises are the complete opposite of that. These events are part car show, part history lesson, part support group for people who panic if someone leans too close to a chrome bumper. Here, originality is king. Matching number engines, original hubcaps, and paint colors that sound like house paint swatches, autumn gold, sea mist green, are points of pride. Expect to see Chevys, Fords, and Mopars from the golden eras, lovingly restored or perfectly preserved. Attendees don't just love their cars, they practically memorize the factory build sheet. If you even suggest installing modern rims, you might get banned from coming again. Now, the appeal here is the nostalgia and the purity. Unlike the chaos of themed cruises or the noise of modern performance gatherings, vintage stock cruises are calm, precise, and above all respectful. They're like mobile museums, except instead of velvet ropes, you get an owner hovering nervously with a microfiber cloth in his hand. Number 2, specific model cruises. Specific model cruises are the most exclusive and sometimes the most obsessive. These are events where only one car model or brand is allowed, and everyone present is deeply, almost suspiciously invested in that. Think Mustang-only cruises where you get to see every generation from 1964 to present, or Corvette caravans where owners argue over which year was truly peak Corvette. These cruises are a dream for enthusiasts who want to geek out without any judgment. Everyone already knows why the car is special. That's why they bought one. Some owners keep their rides bone stock. Others go wild with mods, but everyone's united by the badge on the grille. The vibe here is equal parts camaraderie and competition. You'll see more hood popping and spec sheet reciting than at a dealership convention. If themed cruises are costume parties and vintage stock cruises are museums, then specific model cruises are family reunions, complete with that one relative who insists their model year was the absolute best. And finally, number 1, the Everyone is Welcome cruise. That's the wild card, the Everyone is Welcome cruise. These are the most inclusive and unpredictable of all. They run the gamut from just a parking lot next to a Starbucks all the way up to county fair huge. You'll see Ferraris parked next to rusty pickup trucks, minivans rolling alongside custom hot rods that cost more than your house, and daily commuters joining in just because they felt like it. It's less about standards, more about community. As I mentioned, these cruises kind of have a range. Some might have access to a coffee shop nearby, and other ones have food trucks, live music, but the payoff is that there are random cars of every shape and size. The beauty is in the variety. Where else can you see a lifted monster truck next to a Prius, next to a vintage VW Beetle that has a Hemi stuck in it? Sure, the purists may wrinkle their noses, but these events thrive on the mix. And they're the most common. They're the ones that I find everywhere. The difference is simple: no gatekeeping. Now, while other cruises demand authenticity, creativity, or brand loyalty, Everyone is Welcome cruises thrive on chaos and inclusivity. They're approachable, they're fun, and they're probably the easiest way for you to dip your toes into car culture without needing a showpiece vehicle. Plus, you'll have great stories to tell afterward about the minivan that stole the show. To sum it all up, while all car cruises involve people gathering to admire vehicles, the details make each one unique. Modern performance cruises are all about speed, sound, and horsepower egos. You run into these every now and then. They're fairly common, but you have to network within that community. But when they get together, they tend to be large groups, very loud, and it's not uncommon for the police to come by for noise complaints. Now, themed cruises embrace the creativity and the fun, turn cars into rolling art projects. Now, I live in Southern California, so the lowrider shows, and oddly enough, British car cruises are fairly common. And you want to see rolling art pieces, go to the lowrider shows. You wouldn't believe, down to the detail of the underside of the hood having been painstakingly painted and pinstriped. Now, vintage stock cruises guard authenticity like a sacred relic. Specific model cruises build tight-knit and sometimes slightly competitive communities. These are not as common, but a huge amount of fun when you find them, and their owners will travel several cities away to be in a good vintage stock cruise. Now, the Everyone is Welcome cruise tosses out the rules and invites all comers, creating the most eclectic gatherings of all. These are your most common cruises. They exist in small towns and big cities alike. They're always connected to social media, and if you find car cruise calendar sites online, these are always listed. These are the majority. Now, the variety shows that car culture is not one size fits all. Some come for the nostalgia, others for the noise, and some just for the food trucks. But no matter the type, every cruise is a reminder that cars aren't just transportation, they're passion, their identity, and in many cases, they're a good excuse to argue about hubcaps. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you liked it. I hope you want to go out and go to a cruise this weekend. Get up at 6, grab your favorite donut store coffee. Do me a favor, watch more of my videos, especially the long ones. That helps the channel unbelievably. Now, as always, like, subscribe, share the channel, and take care. Have yourself a great day.